So if you're watching this video, you are probably a perfume lover and you can relate to becoming obsessed with one particular fragrance note and wanting to find your new favorite perfume that revolves around that fragrance note. And that is what happened to me about a year ago, just over a year ago with Palo Santo. And it just came out of nowhere for me. I don't know why, I don't know how I became obsessed with Palo Santo, but I definitely did. And if you're familiar with Palo Santo, you know it is a quite complex woody note. And because of that, I have thoroughly enjoyed this journey into Palo Santo, and I'm really excited to share the following 3 perfumes with you that revolve around Palo Santo. Now, the first one I'm going to talk to you about is called Abime. This is by Maison. This is an indie perfume house based out of France. I had actually never heard of this perfume house until I made a trip to the Lucky Scent brick and mortar store in Los Angeles. My husband and I were recently in Los Angeles. We were also recently in Palm Springs. So if you saw my most recent video where I spoke about the perfumes that I'm really loving for spring, those were really influenced by my 2 recent travels to Los Angeles and Palm Springs. Those were really based around floral perfumes, but while I was in Los Angeles and when I went to Lucky Scent, I actually picked up this Palo Santo based fragrance. Now, while I was at Lucky Scent, I had the extreme pleasure of meeting Gontarski. Now, he has an incredible YouTube channel that, of course, revolves around fragrances, but he also muses about art and music, and I highly recommend going to check out his channel because he is a master storyteller, and the way he weaves in perfume and art and music and life in general is just really incredible. So definitely go check out his channel if you haven't already. But anyway, like I said, he works at Lucky Scent. He was there the day that my husband and I went into the store, and I had the chance to smell all kinds of fragrances. But towards the end of my visit there, he asked me, well, what are you wearing right now? What are you loving right now? And I said, I am loving Byredo De Los Santos, which I'm going to get to in a moment here, which is a Palo Santo fragrance. And he said, well, then you definitely need to check out Abime. And so I sprayed it on my skin, which I hadn't sprayed too many perfumes on my skin while I was testing out the perfumes. I was testing a lot on paper and just smelling it from the bottle. But I decided to go ahead and take the leap and spray this on my skin. And it was really love at first sniff, love at first experience of this perfume. And of course, a big reason for that is the Palo Santo in here, but it is the way that it's integrated into the entire experience. Now, in the top of this perfume is an incredible pepper note, and I believe it's black pepper as well as chili pepper. And the way those two play against each other is so warm and spicy. And of course it's spicy because it's pepper, but it's warm and spicy as well as a little bit dry. And there's also cedar in here as well as Palo Santo. So it's really lovely the way the dryness of the pepper really plays off the dryness of the cedar. So in the opening, you get introduced to the cedar in this perfume. So the top is really incredible. And I'm not a person who really seeks out peppery, spicy types of perfumes. And I was kind of surprised at myself that I really enjoyed the top as much as I do. But I think it's because the cedar, and I'm a huge cedar fan, so I think it's because the pepperiness, like I said, the dryness of that pepperiness really brings in the cedar in such a lovely way that I really enjoy the opening of this perfume a lot. But then as the heart starts evolving, the Palo Santo really starts to come forth. And there's also sandalwood in here. So then as the heart starts developing, you get the creaminess of the sandalwood. So that allows the more creamy nature of the Palo Santo to develop. So Palo Santo, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, is quite complex. It definitely can lean in the direction of being minty, kind of lemony, almost camphorous and sharp, but then it can also at times be more soft and a little bit creamy. And obviously that's going to depend upon the blend of the perfume. So in Abime, it definitely leans towards the softer nature of Palo Santo. And I believe that is because it is very well blended with the base sandalwood note. And I can go either way with Palo Santo. I like when it plays with that edgier side, and I also like when it plays with the softer side. So I have already sprayed Abime on my arm, on my left arm, and it is so beautiful in the dry down. Now, as I mentioned, in the top, and that's what I'm smelling here when I just smell it from the bottle, on the top, you get that peppery dryness of the cedar with a little bit of sweetness. And there is labdanum in here, which has a sweetness to it. And that does shine through the entire experience of this perfume, even though it is a base note. And then, as I mentioned, the dry down, which is what I'm experiencing now on my skin, is a really lovely blend of the sandalwood and the Palo Santo. I also should mention that there's frankincense in here, so you do get a really lovely smoky quality in this perfume. It's not a hyper incensey perfume by any means, but there is just a little hint of smokiness in here. So if you are a woody perfume lover, I would definitely give this one a try. And these are available in sample sizes from Lucky Scent if it does sound interesting to you. In terms of longevity, I would not say this is the longest lasting perfume ever. On my skin, it lasts about 6 hours, which tends to be my preference. I've mentioned this in previous videos that I don't necessarily prefer fragrances that last for 24 hours or, into the next day or even longer. I actually don't mind reapplying my perfume later in the day if that is what I'm wanting to do, but that is just my personal preference. I also really love this bottle. I think it is very chic. I think it is very elegant. I like the minimalistic design. So overall, Abime has just been a big hit for me in terms of my journey with Palo Santo. I really, really love it. And then, as I mentioned, the answer to Stephen's question as to what I have been wearing a lot, Byredo De Los Santos. This is a Palo Santo based perfume as well. This has been a favorite of mine over the past many months. In fact, I included this in my favorites for fall on my other channel, and it's kind of crazy. I think I mentioned in that video that I wasn't too sure if I was going to be enjoying this for spring. I'm not exactly sure why I said that, because this is a spring day today here in Portland, and it is a rainy day. It's a chilly day, and I find this to be a very cozy perfume, and let's get into why I feel that. Now, obviously, it's got Palo Santo in here. There's also some clary sage and mirabelle at the top. Now, clary sage is a big favorite of mine in terms of notes. I actually love clary sage on its own. I love that it's sweet and kind of herbaceous. It's got this really beautiful musky quality to it. And then mirabelle is a fantasy note. It's a fruity, plummy fantasy note that is kind of floral as well. And what's really interesting about De Los Santos and wearing it today, I actually have it on my right wrist, is in the past, I haven't really experienced the mirabelle note in De Los Santos. I've had glimpses of it. I feel like it's kind of allowed the perfume to become a little bit more full-bodied, but I've never really experienced that kind of stewed plum type of experience that mirabelle is supposed to give perfumes. But today, smelling it on my right wrist in comparison to Abime on the left, it definitely is way more amplified in comparison to a much more dry and truly woody on the left side compared to De Los Santos, which does have the clary sage and the mirabelle. It does seem a little bit more sweet and a little bit more fruity in the opening, which was really interesting to experience today. So definitely got more of a sense of the mirabelle in De Los Santos wearing it today. There's also orris and labdanum in De Los Santos. Now, I don't really get a lot of labdanum in De Los Santos, but I definitely get a very subtle, soft iris in this perfume, which I really love. Iris is definitely one of my favorite notes. And then in the base is where we have the Palo Santo, ambroxan, as well as some musk. And these are the three notes that I really feel like are the core of this fragrance. And the ambroxan, as many of you know, is going to lend this perfume an ambery, woody aspect, as well as a little bit of creaminess and a little bit of a mineral, somewhat salty aspect. Now, this is what really rounds out this perfume for me, because as I mentioned in my other channel, I reviewed this perfume on my other channel, This is where it all comes together for me. And I really love this perfume because it brings together two aspects of my life that seem kind of disparate. So I grew up in Phoenix, which is very much of a desert environment. And now I live in the Pacific Northwest, and I've lived here for many, many years. And obviously the Pacific Northwest is very rainy and foresty, two very different types of environments. But De Los Santos has somehow merged those two environments for me in a perfume experience, because it has a little bit of that dryness from the woods. The Palo Santo has that dry aspect to it. It does have a little bit of that minty, camphorous quality that I was telling you about. But in De Los Santos, it also has a creamy, soft aspect to it as well, which does feel very cozy, very cocooning. It's that type of perfume that you want to wear when you're cold and it's kind of rainy outside, which it is today. It's a cold spring, rainy day. And so I feel like it encompasses both of those worlds that are seemingly dichotomous, the dry desert, as well as the cool, rainy air of the Pacific Northwest. It has wrapped both of those up into a cozy blanket, and I really love the experience of De Los Santos. For me, it is one of those perfumes that I can just spray very, very liberally onto my body, and it just feels like this beautiful, gauzy Palo Santo experience that is not harsh. It doesn't have those typical edges that Palo Santo can sometimes have. It just feels, like I said, very gauzy, very airy, but it's not fleeting. And I mention that because there is another Palo Santo perfume that I'm not putting on this list, but I'm going to mention it, and that is Glossier Dew. I reviewed this perfume already. This was the first video that I ever did on this channel. And it does have Palo Santo in it, but I mentioned in that review, and I'll mention it here real quick, that the Palo Santo in here is very fleeting and it just does not last for very long. So that's why I'm not including Glossier Dew in this Palo Santo roundup, because even though there's a little bit of Palo Santo in there, it doesn't last for very long. It's quite ephemeral. So I just wanted to mention that while I'm talking about De Los Santos, because even though I'm saying that the Palo Santo in De Los Santos is kind of gauzy and it feels a little bit more transparent, it is not fleeting. The Palo Santo experience lasts for the whole evolution of this perfume. Like, I've had this on my skin for 2 hours now, and I can still smell the Palo Santo in De Los Santos. So that's why I'm bringing up Glossier Dew, because in that review, I think maybe I mentioned that it had a little bit of a gauzy Palo Santo aspect to it, but I want to be very clear that the Palo Santo in Glossier Dew is fleeting. It does not last for very long, and that is why it is not in this roundup. So anyway, let's get back to Byredo De Los Santos. It is on this list because it is absolutely one of my favorite Palo Santo perfumes, and just in general, it is one of my favorite perfumes of all time. I really love, like I said, spraying this very liberally. It is a very contemplative perfume for me, but I think it goes almost a step further than contemplative for me. And I feel like the word might be serenity. It kind of gives me this serene type of feeling when I spray it in the room and then I walk into the cloud of the perfume. It's just very beautiful, almost mystical for me. I know that might sound a little bit hyperbolic, but it does have that type of effect on me. So I hope I haven't hyped it too much, but it is a very special perfume to me, and I really do love De Los Santos so much. Now I'm going to move on to the perfume that started it all in terms of my obsession with Palo Santo, and this is a indie perfume house here in Portland, and this is OLO, and this is their perfume called Palo Santo. Now this is an oil-based perfume, and it is in a rollerball format. And the notes in OLO's Palo Santo are very simple. There's Palo Santo, Siam wood, and champa flower. But for me, I really do not get the Siam wood or the champa flower. It is really all about the Palo Santo in here. This is just straight up Palo Santo for me. And so when I was talking about Palo Santo sometimes being a little more edgy, a little more minty, a little more camphorous, that is exactly what this is. So if you want an edgy Palo Santo perfume that is just straight up Palo Santo, There is nothing in here that is softening the Palo Santo. Nothing in here is making it creamy. Nothing in here is making it gauzy or transparent or subtle at all. It is just in your face Palo Santo. Then you should definitely give this perfume a try. And I really, really love it. So it is exactly what I needed and what I wanted when I was first becoming obsessed with Palo Santo. And I can remember that I was at home one day and for some reason I just had that like phantom scent of Palo Santo. I'm sure you all have experienced it, where you don't know where it's coming from. You don't have anything in your home that, has that particular note in it, whatever it is. Whether it's, you find yourself smelling gardenia, but there's no gardenia in your house, or, maybe it's iris or it's sandalwood and you just somehow you feel yourself smelling it. That is what was happening with me with Palo Santo. And lucky for me, the OLO Perfume House is a literal 5-minute drive away from my house. I got in my car, I went over there and I picked it up, and it made me so satisfied. I don't even want to say happy, but it just was fulfilling almost a desperate need that I had for Palo Santo. And so I wore this every day for almost like 3 weeks straight and was just loving it so much. It just, like I said, it was fulfilling this craving that I had. And so I will always be attached to OLO's Palo Santo. Now, I don't reach for this nearly as much as I reach for Byredo De Los Santos. And also now that I have Abime in my collection, I am reaching for this now as well when I really want the Palo Santo on my skin. But I really love the OLO Palo Santo when I want that more edgy Palo Santo. But if I am feeling like the De Los Santos might be a little bit too soft for me on a particular day when it comes to the Palo Santo, what I will do is just dab on a little bit of this perfume oil onto my skin, and then I will layer the De Los Santos on top. And then that gives me a little bit of the edginess that I want from the Palo Santo, but with the De Los Santos being the most prominent scent experience on the top. So anyway, just wanted to say that I do really like layering these two. I have yet to layer the OLO Palo Santo with the Abime, but I do look forward to doing that. I also have not yet put the Glossier Dew on top of the Palo Santo from OLO, which now that I'm thinking about it, that might be a good idea in order to make that Palo Santo in the Glossier Dew last longer throughout the experience of that particular perfume. So now that I'm mentioning that here on camera, I think I'm definitely going to do that very, very soon. So I hope you all found this roundup of my favorite Palo Santo fragrances helpful. I personally love Palo Santo. I know it can be a little bit of a polarizing note, but if you made it this far into the video, then I'm sure that means that you are a Palo Santo fan. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please do give me a thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed, I would love it if you would do so, and I will see you soon.